and I didn't realize it was a gentleman who could sing so beautifully. I see what you mean about the light here, Ken. Be that as it may. I made some notes because they tell me you have one chance to make a first impression, and maybe only have one to make a last impression. Hopefully it's not the last. And then the problem, of course, is you can't read the notes without your glasses, and that's not much help. But anyway, firstly, I want to thank you all. I want to thank you all for coming this evening. I think it was very kind of you. I know it's sometimes a schlep, and I know some guys change their schedules, and some of them are quite serious travelers internationally, so I really appreciate that. It's interesting to me how I look back over 20 years, and what really matters is not the money you make for the organization. It's often not the financial achievements. What actually matters at the end are just the relationships. I've said this before to quite a few of you. I mean, some of you might, in fact, some of you were partners. I think William was a partner of Philip Henshaw's for many years. And Philip said to me many years ago that at the end of the day, all that matters is relationships, and it's absolutely true. I look back over the kind of money we made here, and it's been good. It's probably kept us all fed and kept the organization going. But the real important thing was the relationships. And I looked back over 20 years, and I think Ken summarized it very well. The first 10 were kind of tough. The last few of the 10 sort of the NIB days were okay. And then we moved into Nedbank and the merger with BOE. And that was really the last 10 years, and the first 5 years of those were tough. The last 5 years have been really good. They've been good because things worked well. We kind of got the things they wanted to work. The people came through, the whole bank came through. And I think often a lot depends on your boss. So I must talk a bit about the bosses. I've had 7 bosses in the 20 years I've been in the bank. I won't talk about the first 4. We'll just talk about the last 3. And I mean, you can average that's kind of less than 3 years per boss. And maybe it's because what Ken said that I was a little bit prickly. I mean, Fundo endorsed it. I don't imagine how he could say a thing like that, but it probably had some truth to it. But in Fundo, you won the prize because you've lasted longer than anyone else. You've lasted 5 years and you actually go out undefeated. So well done on that. Shortly behind him, Fundo, is Graham Dempster, who did 4 years. So he was quite tough, but he probably had perhaps some of the toughest 4 years. And then the boss just before him was Mike Brown. Now, Mike didn't last long. He lasted 9 months, and he decided that it's better to become financial director than to hang around with me. So, of course, he's gone into other things that have been quite successful. But I must say, it's been, the last 3 bosses have been great guys. It's really been a pleasure. You know, for someone who never ever wanted a boss, yeah, you've done a really good job, and I thank each one of you. I think it was, Mike was just after the merger that he became FD, and he's done exceptionally well. And then Graham tolerated me perhaps at some of the toughest times, and was very encouraged when I said I need a coach. Well, Graham, in fact, Neville Kane told me I needed a coach. Neville Kane's one of the guys who's been with me for a long time. And then Mfundo, he's probably had, I think, probably the best 5 years. And I must say, I think for me it's been the best 5 years too. Mfundo, I thank you for that. It's been an absolute pleasure working with you, working for you. And you've made life easy. You've allowed me to get on with what I need to do without stifling me. And you've always been there for all your people. I think you're an exceptional leader, and I really appreciate it. I appreciate your friendship too, which I hope goes on into the future, which I'm sure it will. Let me just get my train of thought here, I guess. When you're talking about people too, it's interesting as you get older, the relationships become longer. And there's some people here tonight who have kind of been around a long time. The person I've known the longest here is Linda Jackson, who I was at school with. So I'm giving your age away, Linda, sorry about that, but that's how it is. And that goes back to the 70s, in fact, 1969, I think we started high school, and that's when I first met Linda. And then she married Hugh Jackson. I met Hugh 20 years ago through the bank, and they're very good friends of ours as well. And then there's Gert Kleinsmith, who I've known since 1981. He and Margie, they've been friends for a long time. And funny enough, our paths they part, they come back, and this is what's been going on ever since then. And Gert's been a great friend of mine for many years. I don't know where you are, Gert, because there's lights in my eyes, but I know you're here. And then the other one who's been around a long time is David Broom. And David was my very first boss ever. And I think David's standing there somewhere. Where's David? There he is, he's sitting. David was the first guy who had the courage to employ me in 1976, when I was the first year VAC student. And obviously, behaved quite well, because he had me back 6 months later for my next VAC and for my next, and then he gave me articles. And I, in fact, was the first article clerk that was article that ever qualified as a C8. So David, thank you very much for that. He taught me what I know about accounting. So clearly, if I speak to Grant Rothman, David wasn't a very good teacher, but be that as it may. The other person I want to mention, and there's quite a few, so you'll forgive me please, because it's the last chance I'll really have to pay tribute to some of my friends and colleagues here, is Avril Zaneris. Avril's been my PA for 20 years. When I joined the bank, they gave me an office, well, it wasn't an office, an open plan area, in the old Cypress House in Parktown, and I was introduced to Mrs. Zaneris, who was now my PA. And Avril taught me kind of everything I knew in this business, because I was not a banker. I didn't know much about it. When I say everything, she taught me how to use a mouse. I mean, that sounds quite funny today. In fact, mice, they're becoming fairly obsolete. But Avril, who's not here tonight because she's in Cyprus with her husband on holiday, and he's been very ill recently, but Avril has been an absolute mainstay for me. She is a remarkable woman. 20 years of putting up with me, said take some doing. And I can tell you something about her. Avril is someone who has no idea how to give up. The resilience and her perseverance is amazing. In 20 years, only on one occasion ever did she come to me and say, you've asked me to do something and I can't do it. And that one thing was simply because of agenda bias, that the person she was speaking to really had no interest in speaking to a woman. And it's the only time in 20 years that she didn't do what I asked her, and plus more. She's an I mean, I hope some of you will perhaps share this with her, but she's a fantastic person. She's made my life a pleasure, and after 20 years, you kind of don't need to even talk to someone anymore and say what to do. Things just happen. So I pay tribute to Avril, and for those of you who know her, please tell her I said some good things about her, because she's a very special person. And then I come to my exco. My exco I've worked with for quite a long time, as Ken pointed out. 4 of the guys in the exco have worked with me for 20 years. Another 3 have been for 10 years, 1 for 9 and 1 for 3 years. So if you add that up, it's 122 years that we've worked together, or not worked together, that we've kind of been together in one way or another. And I think I must actually pay tribute to that exco, because it's, you know who you are, it's Ken, it's Marnie, it's Richard, it's Neville, who've been with me for 20 years, it's Rob, Joanne and Grant for 10 years, Anand for 9 years, and Portia for 3. And it's been a fantastic journey with you. If I look back and I say, could I have achieved what I've done without you, the answer is absolutely no. You've really been amazing. You've been professional. I think you've all got your 10,000 hours, so you kind of pretty much know what you're doing now. But it's been a great time working with you all. And I think it's been fantastic to see you, how many of you have grown, in fact all of you have grown, and how you've changed over the time. And we do change. Sometimes we don't notice it because it's quite slow, but I've been watching closely, and I think every one of you have changed for the better. You've been fantastic. Guys, you have really built a world-class business, and I mean that in all seriousness. If you look back and you see, compare the property finance division in Nedbank with anything in the world, I'm exceptionally proud to have worked with all of you. So I thank you for that. It's been a really great journey with all of you. The other part that I think is very important is the clients. And when you've been around for so long, you see some pretty good things and you see some pretty ugly things. But the good things outweigh the ugly things. And the privilege I've had in meeting many of the clients, in fact, I haven't met all of them obviously, but over 20 years you kind of become quite close to quite a few of them. And interestingly enough, you make sure you only become quite close and don't get too friendly with ones that might be a problem one day. So you've got to choose them quite well from the beginning. And most of them are here tonight. But I look back and it's not really fair to single people out, but I think I just have some abiding memories of some of these businesses. And I've been, I think, enormously privileged in being able to be a part of the growth of so many incredible businesses and to deal with such amazing entrepreneurs who stepped beyond entrepreneurship and built big businesses. I've learned so much from you, and I thank you for that too. And whilst I said it's not perhaps it's unfair perhaps to mention them, but there are a couple. There's if I look back and I think of the times, and most of you have been around a long time, and people I've learned from, there's Arnold. I'm not sure if Arnold's here this evening, but Arnold is my philosopher friend, Arnold Pistorius, who is much more than a property developer. He's kind of a wise man who thinks a great deal about life and the meaning of it. And my times with you have always been very interesting. The other guys are the two guys who are particularly one, the father. It's John and Jason McCormick. I mean, John has built, I think, more shopping centres than anyone in South Africa ever. He built, last count was 55, but that was a few months ago, so there might be more now. It's been great spending time with you, and doing the odd bird shooting has always been a lot of fun. I think about Atterbury, which is an incredible business that's been built by Louis and his team and Francois van Niekerk, and it's really been wonderful meeting you guys too. I think of Atfund with Louis Norval and Francois, and then Nino Hasbrook, who've become good friends of mine as well, and the incredible business that you built up. Jacco Odendaal is a man who certainly I find a fascinating thinker. I mean, many of you know Jacco, the most observant person I've ever seen. I rate him as probably one of the two best negotiators I've ever met. So it's hell doing a deal with him, because you've got to be so careful. Not that he's crooked, but you've got to be so wide awake. It's the only thing worse is negotiating with Mfundo. So I warn all of you, if you have that privilege, or that, in fact, it's not a privilege, it's going to be tough for you. If you negotiate with Mfundo, best you just decide what you want and don't budge from it, because he'll find a way to negotiate you into a negotiation. And that's quite challenging. So Jacco has been a very interesting person to me too. And I think the last one perhaps is Rodney. Rodney Weinstein of Zenprop. Rodney's also built up an exceptional business. And I hope the rest of you guys are not upset with me, because we've got a lot of other people like George de Costa is a great industrial developer as well. But many of you meant a great deal to me over the years. And I thank you for your friendship. I thank you for the amount you've taught me. And I thank you for the fascinating insights that I've had. In this business, the boring bit is, banking is becoming more and more dreary because of things like compliance and Basel, and it's an essential part of the business now. But the real challenge and the fun bit is doing the deals with the clients, because they're challenging, they make you think. And our blessing, I think, in our businesses, we've got some great clients who've been with us for many years and have continued to give us great business. So I thank all of you for what you've done. I then come to Alison. And when I talk about my family, I must be careful not to be emotional, and I can't guarantee that, but I will do my best. Alison has given me, I've been married to Alison just for a few months longer than I've been in Nedbank. We got married in October 1993, and I joined here on the 2nd of August 94. So our relationship is almost as long as that of Nedbank, and sometimes I think I've spent more time at Nedbank than I have with Alison. In fact, I think it's not sometimes, I think that's a fact. But Ali has given me her unconditional support for 20 years. And I can absolutely tell you, not once did she ever moan about stuff or say that, why don't you leave the bank? Even in the last 9 years, 8.5 years of my commuting. What she did is she kept the family together. She was effectively a single mother half the time. And I think certainly gave her an appreciation for how tough it is for single mothers. And I think really, Ali, I agree with where are you? Very well. You've been fantastic. You're a fantastic wife. You are the best friend anyone could have. Thank you for the support. Then I talk about my daughter Catherine, who I will say my beautiful daughter Catherine, and she'll be embarrassed by me, but fathers are here to embarrass their children. I mean, what else other pleasures can we have in life? And Catherine is truly a wonderful girl in that she's also kind of grown up with half a father for the last 9 years, but she's done it extremely well. I'm extremely proud of her. She's writing, in fact this morning she wrote her first prelim. Tomorrow morning she'll write her second prelim back in Cape Town, so we're leaving early. Her headmistress gave her a dispensation that if we get back to school before they finish the exam, she can then write, which I think was very kind of her. But Catherine is kind of the person, I guess, who gets me better than anyone else. We're kind of, I guess, soulmates. She shares my passion for aviation and for aeroplanes. And we've had some great times. We went to Oshkosh 2 years ago, and just the two of us, we had a wonderful time together there. And I think she's quite a remarkable young lady, very proud of her. And then my baby, who you've seen around here, my baby who's about 6'2" and weighs 200 pounds, he's 16 years old, and I'm embarrassed to say he drags me off the gym, and he's much stronger than I am. And Richard, Richard is also, he has some amazing abilities as well. He is, I can honestly tell you, he has more emotional intelligence than I think anyone I've ever met, more empathy and more compassion. He's a really nice guy, you get to know him. Richard, but on top of that, he's tough. And it's quite hard to be tough and strong with all that sort of compassion and empathy and kindness. So he's a very special guy, and I'm very proud of you too, Richard. You continue to do, he's quite talented too. He plays quite a reasonable game of rugby, and then he also plays with the orchestra, the French horn, which is quite this big guy doing this, playing this wonderful instrument. So I think my kids certainly have been amazing for me. What's interesting about children is I learn more from my kids than I do from anyone else these days. And I'm not talking about things like Facebook and that, which I'm hopeless at, but really just to learn and to see what insights they have. And I can tell you too that the young people of today, it's very nice, it's very easy for people my age and my generation to talk, the young people today, they're not like we were. They're actually a hell of a lot better. They work harder, they're more diligent, and I don't just mean my children, I mean their friends as well. I've had a lot to do with the top students here in the bank. And the passion they have, the hard work, what kind of surprised me too is the respect they have, that the young generation is absolutely remarkable. I think it bodes well for our future. So I think we must really embrace them, we must encourage them in everything they do. And finally, I think just to share the last thing is really, there was the last slide that went up here was really very important to me, and that we must do things for other people. It's quite easy to be selfish. In fact, it's very easy to be selfish, but to actually give and to see people grow is the most satisfying thing that one could possibly do. It's really made my 20 years here those are the things that stand out for me, is the people that have grown, that have taken the chances they've had, run with it, and effectively, learned about themselves, and were honest to themselves. And I think it's something we should all do, is to try and assist other people in their lives. And certainly, I remember Graham said paying dreams to pay for my coach many years ago, which was a short thing, but it was a life-changing experience for me. I would welcome and I would urge all of you to do something for other people as well in your personal life every day, because what I've noticed in the last 2-3 weeks, walking through this atrium, going up the lift, in the passages, is how many people have come up to me, and some people I don't really know well, some I know their faces, only one or two I quite frankly don't even know who they are, don't know their faces even. And what they remember after all the years in business is they remember a speech I gave. They remember a moment of kindness, a moment when you could mentor them, when they'd say, can I have some advice? It was a once-off 6-7 years ago maybe. They remember those things. They don't remember how much money you made. They'll never remember what title you had, because at the end of the day, that actually doesn't really matter. What matters is how we treat each other. So you've treated me well. It's been great in Nedbank. I've had some wonderful opportunities. I'm leaving to do something that I can't really do in the bank. It's a passion I have. It's a hairy and audacious goal. I might get it right. I'm pretty sure I will. But certainly it's something. I'm following a dream. And we often say to our kids, follow your dream, but we don't set the example. So at the late age of 58, I hope to do that. If it doesn't work, I've given it a bigger chance, because the fear of failure is the most debilitating fear we can have. I thank every one of you for coming this evening. It's been great having you, and I hope you have a nice evening. And I hope to see many, if not all of you again. It will be a bit tricky sometimes because of the traveling. But thanks for everything, and thanks for a wonderful 20 years, and may we stay friends. Thank you.